all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
India's IT capital is always buzz. It's literally a city that never sleeps. And I keep you ahead on all the Bengaluru buzz.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
I now request the Honorable Prime Minister to launch NDTV World and address the summit.
It was the grand launch of NDTV World by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. NDTV World, as he laid out his vision for the India century at the NDTV World Summit.
ऐसी सदी जिसमें भारत के प्रयासों से दुनिया में स्थिरता आए.
In the presence of those who are shaping our future.
मेरी तरफ से आपको ढेर सारी शुभकामनाएं हैं.
NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
NDTV proudly presents NDTV.
You are watching the World 24/7 on NDTV. I'm Parmeshwar Baba. Let's begin with the headlines we're tracking at the moment. Trump has announced that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will lead the Department of Government Efficiency. Meanwhile, Trump also confirmed he's tapping South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem to lead the Department of Homeland Security while nominating Fox News host and Army veteran Pete Hegseth to serve as his defense secretary. The Archbishop of Canterbury resigned after criticism over his apparent failure to properly investigate allegations of child abuse in the United Kingdom and Africa. Meta has cut the price of its ad-free subscription versions of Facebook and Instagram by 40% for European Union users to comply with regulatory demands in the region. The United Kingdom has reiterated its support for India's permanent membership in the United Nations Security Council as part of an expansion of the international panel to ensure it can continue to rise to the pressing challenges faced by the world. Well, our big focus, US President-elect Trump has announced that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will lead a new department of government efficiency to cut government spending and streamline bureaucracy. Now, I'll tell you why this matters. The political alliance between Elon Musk and Donald Trump is officially making the leap from the campaign trail to the White House now. But while the partnership has been in the works for months, one big question remains. What exactly will Elon Musk's role be in this new administration? And with Vivek Ramaswamy by their side, can this trio actually deliver on their bold promises of sweeping change, or will it all be smoke and mirrors? Well, only time will tell if Musk and Ramaswamy can turn their disruptive vision into reality, or if the political calculations just don't add up. But by the way, Elon Musk's super PAC is reported to have spent around $200 million in support of Donald Trump, which set a new precedent for billionaire influence in politics, especially in the United States. By the way, Donald Trump has confirmed he's chosen South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem to lead the Department of Homeland Security. She's a staunch Trump ally and someone whose name was floated earlier this year as well as a potential vice president pick. But it's not just her political loyalty that's turning heads. Noem had made headlines earlier this year for a shocking and controversial admission in her memoir. She had revealed that she killed her dog with a shotgun, explaining that the animal had become untrainable and dangerous. And as you already know, Trump announced that he will nominate Mike Huckabee, the former governor of Arkansas, to be the US ambassador to Israel, and Pete Hegseth, The Fox News host has been chosen as Trump's nominee for Secretary of Defense. He is an Army veteran as well. In fact, Mr. Hegseth was deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan and unsuccessfully ran for Senate in Minnesota back in 2012 before joining Fox News. Meanwhile, over in the US, major changes which are certain to affect its foreign policy are already in motion, as many have highlighted. But as he gears up for a second term in office, Donald Trump has made some key picks. My colleague Arjun gets us this report on how these appointments could significantly impact the future of US-India ties.
President-elect Donald Trump has picked Congressman Mike Waltz to be the country's next national security advisor and is likely to pick Senator Marco Rubio as his Secretary of State. Both key figures have strong ties with India. Congressman Mike Waltz is a former Green Beret with a focus on defense and regional security. As the co-chair of the India caucus in Congress, he has supported policies to strengthen US-India ties. He's also expected to push for deeper defense collaboration between US and India, especially in counter-terrorism and maritime security. With his background in national security, Waltz may help accelerate military-to-military engagements and arms sales. Meanwhile, Marco Rubio is a staunch advocate for strengthening ties with India. He has long emphasized the importance of India as a strategic partner in countering China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific region. He's also known for supporting the Quad security dialogue. Rubio's new role could boost military and economic cooperation between the two nations. For India, both appointments signal stronger US support in the region, particularly as the two countries work together to counter China's assertiveness. The future of US-India relations looks set for continued growth with increased focus on defense and security. As US-India ties continue to strengthen, these appointments could mark a pivotal moment in the Indo-Pacific region.
Meanwhile, a judge has delayed the decision on whether to overturn President-elect Donald Trump's hush money conviction as prosecutors weigh their next steps in light of last week's election results. Meanwhile, Trump's legal team is pushing for the case to be dismissed altogether, arguing that he should be free to focus on running the country. Sentencing had been scheduled for 26th of this month, but Manhattan prosecutors are now rethinking their approach. It appears they may be open to the idea that the legal proceedings could no longer follow the original course, creating uncertainty around what actually happens next. Sally Patterson has more from New York for us.
Donald Trump is the first convicted criminal ever to be elected to the White House. He may have won the US election last week, but that doesn't mean his legal cases just disappear, at least not straight away. Here in New York, the former president was found guilty on 34 felony counts back in May. A jury found him guilty of covering up payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels to influence the 2016 presidential election. As things stand, he's due to be sentenced in that hush money trial at the end of this month. But now the judge overseeing that case, Judge Juan Merchan, says he'll take another week to decide how to proceed. That could mean throwing the case out altogether or moving forward with sentencing on the 26th of November. Trump's team says the case should be dismissed following a Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity. That's also the argument his lawyers are using to fight a federal case he's facing, looking at election interference. Trump is charged with mounting a campaign to subvert President Joe Biden's win in 2020. But now the Justice Department is working out how to wind down that case before Trump takes office. His other federal case, where the former president was accused of taking classified documents, had been tossed out already before last week's election. The Justice Department was planning on appealing that decision, but that now seems unlikely. The final criminal case facing Donald Trump is in the state of Georgia, which also looks at election interference. It's faced several delays, and its future is uncertain. Sally Patterson, NDTV, New York.
Well, let's turn our attention to the other big story. The Archbishop of Canterbury has resigned after a report found the Church of England covered up sexual abuse by a barrister. Now, the independent review into John Smith's abuse of children and young men was published last week, and across 5 decades in 3 different countries, involving as many as 130 boys and young men in the UK and Africa, Smith is said to have subjected his victims to traumatic physical, sexual, psychological, and spiritual attacks permanently marking their lives. So in a resignation letter, Justin Welby has said, having sought the gracious permission of His Majesty the King, he has decided to resign. Let's turn our attention now to Azerbaijan. Well, this year has been a masterclass in human destruction, the UN Secretary General has said, as he reflected on extreme weather and record temperatures around the world, fueled by climate breakdown. Antonio Guterres was addressing scores of world leaders and high-ranking government officials from nearly 200 countries gathered in Baku in Azerbaijan for the COP29 UN Climate Summit, when he painted a stark portrait of the consequences of climate breakdown that had arisen in months. For further clarity, we have with us climate change expert Seth Warren-Rose, live from Hanoi, Vietnam. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the World 24/7. Experts say worsening climate impacts will put inflation on steroids. But as the host, Azerbaijan, has said, they will strongly advocate for green transition. But the caveat they've added is, at the same time, they must be realistic. Where does this really leave us, sir?
Well, I listened to the Secretary General's speech, and I found him to be overly optimistic. I understand that's his position as Secretary General. He has to encourage the executives that he was speaking with to do more. But although I think he cited 80% of the global population is looking for more action on climate change. If you look at what's really going on in the world, if you look at the election of Donald Trump just recently, he's pulling out, or had during his previous administration pulled out a lot of the climate incentives, and that the U.S. had been moving in that direction. So I think that it doesn't bode well. The idea that he said we're looking to still approach a 1.5 degrees Celsius, and that is the goal that has been UN's goal for many years. It doesn't look like we're going to get there. So I suspect that I would think that we need to do more, and the answer is really pretty simple. It's been the same answer for many years, and that is we need to have a global tax on carbon. I am encouraged because India, as a democracy, is more likely to encourage the moving in the right direction. I think a lot of manufacturing is still going to be in India, so I am encouraged by that. But without a price on carbon, the world is just not going to move in the right direction. If you look at what's going on with artificial intelligence, the amount of energy that they're using, that is going to, that's just competing with what the efforts that we're making now. I'm a big fan of artificial intelligence because it's going to come up with new ideas that we don't have currently. But overall, I think I'm not encouraged.
Right. In fact, many experts and climate change watchers have said that they aren't impressed so far by the agenda in Baku. A global tax on carbon is the need of the hour. Now, although leaders like the UK's Keir Starmer, Barbados' Mia Mottley, and Turkey's Erdogan have addressed the summit, the fact, sir, that the heads of government of most of the world's biggest economies have stayed away, what signal would you say this sends to the world, especially the global south?
Well, I think that the global south obviously going to be paying the highest price, which is quite unfortunate. And I remember being in Kenya. It might have been 20 years ago. I was in there for a meeting, and at that time, the cost of rice had increased as an American, some small amount. But to the people in Kenya, it was a huge, significant increase. And so your problem is that the folks that are really running the global economy, like the US, they're not going to notice these relatively small increases in things like increased price on rice, whereas an American consumer might see it small. The majority of the world is going to be devastated by the things that climate change is bringing.
Meanwhile, some countries like Papua New Guinea have actually pulled out of COP, saying it's a total waste of time. What do you have to say to the critics who argue that UN climate summits have produced no results?
Well, it has produced results. It just hasn't produced. I would make the argument that it has done some good. And imagine if there was no global summit on climate at all, we'd be in much worse shape. I don't think we can. I don't think we can avoid getting to where what is probably more likely to be what's called a 2-degree scenario. Or certainly looks like we're heading in that direction, which will be devastating. I mean, I just want to make sure that people understand we're talking about floods and fires and food shortages, droughts, lack of. I mean, we're talking about climate refugees, and look at the U.S. is now pushing people that are coming to the U.S. We're now pushing them away at the very moment that we need to open our doors and help people around the world do more. So I understand their frustration, but a little bit is better than nothing.
Absolutely. In fact, politics, economics, and the climate are fatally entwined. As we know, governments may be feeling the consequences of the worst inflation for decades, but far more serious consequences are in store, as you are highlighting. Thank you so much, Seth, for joining us on The World 24/7. Let's turn our attention now to Canada, where amid fears of an attack by Khalistan supporters, Brampton Triveni Mandir and the community centre had cancelled a consular camp that was to be organised in collaboration with the Indian High Commission to assist retired Indian civil servants who have migrated in continuing to receive their pension benefits. My colleague Vishnu Shom takes you through what's happening in Canada.
Dhanraj, let me come to you first. What exactly was the message of the police?
Namaskar, everyone. The message of the police was very clear in that we have an extremely high and imminent threat for this event. And if you want us to provide security protection of the police, then we have to give you an assessment of cost, and it can range between 50,000 to 100,000 Canadian dollars. And otherwise, we have to recommend that you cancel the event because there is a very serious threat. And if you go ahead, you'll be endangering the public.
Pandit Dhanraj, let me get that right. The police in Peel told the temple to pay for security.
That is correct, because we asked them, we want to continue with the program. The consulate has also asked us to continue with the program. Our community members are asking for the program. So what is our option? Can the police not provide a continuous presence? And they said, in this situation, because of the high level of threat, actually the cost of security will fall on the hosts. And the host being Brampton Triveni Mandir, we can assume that the cost will be between $50,000 to $100,000.
Panditji, isn't that what this is all about? That these are a distinct minority in Canada of violent Sikh extremists who are utterly disconnected from the large number of Sikhs in Canada and certainly the large number of Indo-Canadians who are threatening your temple and Indian nationals. Isn't this what this is essentially about?
That's exactly correct, because the life certificate events that were successful, those temples informed us that if not 70% of the seniors who showed up for these certificates were not Hindu, they were in fact Sikh. So it's not a Hindu-Sikh issue. It's a very small minority that we have that are doing these protests and creating this problem.
Is this in writing to you, the police saying that you need to pay?
No, this was discussed verbally in a sit-down meeting we had with police officers. As soon as that meeting was concluded, we asked them, whatever you've said, can you please send it to us in writing? When they sent the statement, they omitted that part. So I feel that they might have had a change of heart, or perhaps that's not something they wanted to put in writing.
Right. So legally at this stage, it's incumbent upon them to actually provide security without any charge, right?
We believe that is the law. But when the police is sending you a letter saying, we believe this event has a high security threat and you will be endangering the public if you go ahead, then we cannot move ahead without their support. So that is why we had to cancel the event.
What is the nature of the exact threat? Do they believe that this small group or this group of Khalistani extremists are physically going to attack the temple and people inside? Is that what it is? Do they fear more? Do they fear potentially murderous attacks? What is it that is the sense the police is concerned?
They didn't go into more details. However, last year when we held this event, we had the similar types of threats being made online, and they did not ask us to cancel the event. We had the event successfully with off-duty police officers. So it seems that this year they expect more physical violence, and they believe that the property of the temple can be breached, as it was a week before at Hindu Sabha Temple in Brampton, and that is why they're asking this year to go ahead and cancel.
As always, news and updates continue in a moment right after this very short break. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola Edge 50 Pro, world's first AI-powered pro-grade camera. Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you. NDTV proudly upholds its legacy of trust and credibility. According to the prestigious Reuters Institute's Digital News Report 2024, NDTV is the topmost news platform in the country. Number 1 in both online and offline reach in India. Beating all its competition, NDTV stands for trust.
Hello and welcome to India Sense, where I speak with global opinion makers.
The United States has made a strategic decision over the last 20 years to move closer to India.
So a $7 trillion economy seems a perfectly conceivable number.
If you want to be a national party, it's that you sort of accept the way the world is rather than want to endlessly hark back to how it was.
Modi is promoting the digitization of the economy, which is accelerating growth in the country.
I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president.
Donald triumphs. What does Trump's win mean for America, for the world, for the wars, and for India-US relations? Non-stop coverage on NDTV. Top analysts and voices from the ground. Extensive coverage on NDTV.
We reached an agreement on patrolling.
Welcome back. Let's get you a quick update from China now, where at least 35 people were killed after a man drove an SUV into a crowd outside a sports stadium. This is in southern China, and it's the latest in a string of violent incidents to rattle the country. The apparent attack drew a rare public response from Chinese leader Xi Jinping, who said law enforcement should work to strictly prevent extreme incidents. But I must inform you that outbursts of violence in the last 6 months, including a stabbing of 4 instructors affiliated with a US college and a fatal stabbing at a Shanghai Walmart, have sparked concerns about whether socioeconomic tensions stemming from a slowing economy, unemployment, and social isolation are contributing to the crime wave. China's premier said the country must investigate hidden risks and social conflicts. In other news, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has decided not to suspend military aid to Israel despite mounting pressure over the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The decision comes after Israel took some steps to improve the flow of aid into the region. But the big picture, humanitarian organizations have actually warned that the situation in Gaza is now at its worst since the war began in 2023, pushing the Biden administration into a very difficult position. There's increasing pressure for the US to use its influence with Israel to address the worsening conditions and ensure aid gets through to those in desperate need.
This is what the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom looks like right now. The Gazan side of the Kerem Shalom. This is how it looks right now. These are images of 900 trucks worth of aid just waiting to be picked up by aid organizations. Every day we're bombarded with criticism around the world and from UN aid agencies. To their shame, these same UN aid agencies, some of this aid has been waiting there for months. So we say to the United Nations, pick up the aid so more aid can get into Gaza. The government of Israel takes extremely seriously the letter sent just shy of a month ago to the Israeli government from Secretary Austin and Secretary Blinken. We take extremely seriously the contents of that letter. We have studied it intensely. We have acted upon it with the best will that we can to get as much aid, which is why we say every single day there is no limit to the amount of aid that can get into Gaza. So we are doing our utmost.
Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden met with Israeli President Isaac Herzog at the White House as the two leaders addressed the conflict with Lebanon, the humanitarian situation in Gaza, and the hostages still being held by Hamas. The meeting, Mr. Herzog called very productive, lasted about an hour, but Israel's government must meet a deadline today to boost aid to Gaza or face consequences. And Antony Blinken, Joe Biden's Secretary of State, is heading to Europe on a flying visit for urgent meetings on Ukraine with NATO and EU officials. He will actually hold talks in Brussels today on how to boost support for Ukraine, leaving the same day for a conference in Latin America. This, as Russia is building up infantry and armored vehicles while stepping up aerial bombardments ahead of planned attacks along the southern front. This is what a Ukrainian military spokesman has said on record. Also, as you know, more than 10,000 North Korean troops have begun engaging in combat operations alongside Russian forces, mostly in the far western Kursk Oblast. This is what the US State Department has said. Another update from the US, a member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard who leaked classified Pentagon information has been jailed for 15 years. Jack Teixeira shared documents that contain information about the war in Ukraine on the messaging platform Discord. And as per reports, the leak exposed information about troop movements in Ukraine and the provision of supplies and equipment to Kyiv soldiers.
This is an important day for our country, for our armed services, for our intelligence community. Today, Jack Teixeira was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for violating the oath every one of us in public service takes to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
In other crucial news, Meta Platforms is scaling back its targeted advertising for European users as it looks to address growing concerns from the European Union over its subscription model. In fact, in a blog post, the company announced that users in Europe will now have the option to switch to less personalized ads on Facebook and Instagram. This move provides an alternative for users who want to limit the amount of personal data Meta collects to serve targeted ads without having to commit to a paid subscription. And the longtime CEO of Saudi Arabia's futuristic megacity, NEOM, abruptly left his post, which is the latest setback for the world's largest construction project. The departure of Nadmi Al-Nassar, who has led the effort since 2018 and reportedly had an aggressive leadership style, marks a major shake-up at NEOM, which is central to Riyadh's ambition to diversify its economy and also become a tourism and entertainment destination. Plans for NEOM include a floating industrial complex, but in the past year it has faced budget challenges, delays, and reports of worker deaths.
Welcome to Sindala.
Thank you so much for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. We'll keep tracking the latest for you. Do stay tuned.
करप्शन फर्स्ट आमचा अजेंडा आहे नेशन फर्स्ट
घोषणा आणि जनतेचे पैसे लुटणं
कट कमिशन आणि करप्शनला आमच्याकडे थारा नाही त्यांचा परिवारवाद आमचा महाराष्ट्रवाद
महाराष्ट्रामध्ये 1,75,000 जागा रिक्त आहेत पण का भरत नाही राज्याची जनतेच्या घमाच्या पैशाची तिजोरी लुटण्यासाठी हे सरकार आहे
पूर्वीच्या सरकारच्या काळामध्ये निधी देताना त्यांना असं वाटायचं की त्यांच्याच खिशातले पैसे चालले शेतकऱ्यांना मोफत वीज देण्याचं काम आपल्या सरकारने सुरू केलं
I've been reporting on all issues, big and small, from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai. India's IT capital is always buzz. It's literally a city that never sleeps. And I keep you ahead on all the Bengaluru buzz.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is